Hello, guys. Welcome back to the MMA Sucker channel. My name is Frazer Krohn, and this is the second in a series of three short videos just looking at the stats behind some of the guys in the bigger fights at UFC 280 that goes down this Saturday, sort of night, afternoon, evening, morning, depending on where you are in the world, from Abu Dhabi, formerly known as Fight Island, as we know. This video will be focusing on the co-main event between Aljamain Sterling and TJ Dillashaw. I've already done a breakdown on the main event between Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira for the vacant lightweight title. I'll link that down below, or you can just check out the MMA Sucker YouTube channel. It's on there. Like I say, this one will be focusing on Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw for the undisputed bantamweight title of the world. It is certainly a fight that is going under the radar because of how strong the card is overall, but because of how strong, how intriguing the main event is. But this one is equally as intriguing, equally strong. You know, this could headline a pay-per-view on its own. There's a lot of storylines going into this one. TJ Dillashaw's got the opportunity to become a three-time bantamweight champion. Obviously, he won it against Renan Barão back in the day. He then lost it to Dominic Cruz. He then won it back off Cody Garbrandt, and then he was stripped when he after he failed the drug test, after he went down to flyweight to try and beat Henry Cejudo, and obviously was knocked out within the first couple of minutes, first minute even in that one. Aljamain Sterling, coming off the biggest win of his career without a doubt against Petr Yan. He wants to get over this Petr Yan, that Petr Yan double. You know, we've seen the video of them two shaking hands and being more civil with each other. Obviously, Petr Yan's on the card, and I'll be releasing a video tomorrow. The stats behind Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley, so be sure to check that out on the YouTube channel. But yeah, like I say, you know, he wants to put those Petr Yan fights behind him. Since Sterling fought Petr Yan, you know, he fought him once with the disqualification victory for Sterling. He then you know, he had to have neck surgery. Then he came back and he had the rematch with Petr Yan. This is a fresh face for Aljamain Sterling in TJ Dillashaw, and it's a fresh face for Dillashaw. Obviously, you know, Dillashaw fought Cejudo, was out, suspended for 2 years, came back against Sandhagen in a close fight. And now, you know, he's got like I say, he's got the opportunity to become a three-time bantamweight champion. We're going to jump into the stats, highlight some of the most important key stats. And as I said in the first video of Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira, all stats are available on UFCstats.com. So be sure to check that out because, you know, it's a great tool for anyone, let alone, you know, those that are a bit of a stats nerd like myself. So we'll jump into so this is UFCstats.com. It's a great tool. Like I say, it's got loads of information on it, and it's pretty instant as well. Straight after the fights, they put the stats up. So like I say, this one is focusing on the UFC bantamweight title bout between the champion Aljamain Sterling and the challenger TJ Dillashaw. TJ isn't, you know, he's used to being a challenge. He's used to championship 5-round fights. You know, he's had a lot of them in his career, as has Aljamain Sterling now. 22 fights for TJ Dillashaw, faces, you know, 24 fights for Aljo. A vast amount of experience between both men, and pretty, you know, that both men have been in the UFC for a long time. TJ obviously came off the off tough, and Aljamain Sterling's come through the regional ranks and then sort of burst onto the UFC scene. The tale of the tape between both guys, you know, average fight time, Aljamain Sterling 13 minutes 12, TJ 12 minutes 28. Again, very similar here. Height very similar, 5'7" against 5'6". Weight, obviously, you know, we know that he'll be weighing in at 135-pound championship weight for this one. Reach, 71-inch reach advantage for Aljamain Sterling, faces a 67-inch reach disadvantage for TJ Dillashaw. But Dillashaw knows how to fight long. He's very quick in and out of range. TJ is 3 years older than Aljo. Doesn't really make an awful lot of difference. Both guys won't have any sort of, you know, age has not hit these guys yet. With that being said, you know, both guys have suffered big injuries in their careers. Aljo, as I sort of alluded to, had neck surgery, which is solid. You know, the neck surgery is no joke. But we saw what you know, how successful that neck surgery must have been when he returned against Petr Yan and defeated Petr Yan last time out. And TJ Dillashaw's obviously had that knee injury. I think he might have even had surgery on it. He suffered the knee injury in the Corey Sandhagen bout. So both of these guys are they're wearing the sort of war wounds of these, over 20 fights that each man has had. But these are two guys at the top of the division. We're going to go into the striking stats first, and then the grappling stats. So Aljamain Sterling, TKO or KO finishes 2 in his entire career. Across 24 fights, he's only finished 2 fights via TKO or KO, and only one of those is in the UFC, and that was all the way back in 2014. So Aljo is not known for his knockouts, his knockout power. Could that play a factor in this one? Well, if he can't get Dillashaw to the ground and he finds himself behind in this one, he'll have to go searching for that knockout. So it could play a big factor, but we won't know that exactly until we look into the grappling stats. Strikes landed per minute for Aljamain Sterling, 4.56. 4.56 strikes landed per minute. That's quite a lot, but it's simply not as much as TJ Dillashaw at 5.26. TJ lands almost another strike per minute than Aljo. What's important for this one is that Aljo, if you remember in that first Petr Yan fight, gassed out badly because he came out so quickly and looked to just swarm Petr Yan. I don't think that he can do that against TJ Dillashaw, because Dillashaw is too smart, and he's got the blueprint now. Weather the storm and then take over when Aljo's cardio fails him. Let's not forget, this is in Abu Dhabi. And from what I remember, previous Abu Dhabi cards, of course, the climate is completely different to fighting in America. But, Aljo's fought, I believe Aljo's fought here before in Abu Dhabi when he fought Petr Yan the first time. I can't, no, no, apologies. That was in Vegas when he fought Petr Yan the first time. So Abu Dhabi is new to both of these guys, I believe. Dillashaw, obviously he had the 2-year layoff. So, none of these guys have fought in Abu Dhabi before, but from I remember Joanne Calderwood when she fought there saying it is so hot in the arena. That's definitely going to take a toll on your cardio. It's going to be different. These guys, we know that they're both out there already. They got out there last week, so they are going to be acclimatized. But it's a whole nother ball game when you've got that pressure, and you've got another guy trying to hit you in the face, essentially. So will the cardio be a factor? Potentially, but strikes landed per minute. If Aljo comes out hot like he did against Petr Yan in their first fight, he's going to increase that strike output per minute, and he could look to sort of jump on TJ Dillashaw, who is coming off after a fairly long layoff. Striking accuracy, ironically, is actually in the favor of Aljamain Sterling here. Look, 50% plays 41%. TJ Dillashaw is known as the more, TJ has got eight knockouts across his UFC career. Across his MMA career, 7 of which have been in the UFC. Obviously knocked out Cody Garbrandt twice, Henan Barao. He's got plenty of knockouts on his record, but he's got a lower strike accuracy, than Aljamain Sterling. That does surprise me, because if I think of this, it's TJ is the more well-rounded fighter in my opinion. He's got the better stand-up. He's got the probably wrestling is pretty similar, and ground game is probably in the favor of Aljamain Sterling, but only slightly. But TJ's stand-up is considerably better in my opinion than Aljamain Sterling's. That's not to say Sterling's bad on the feet, no, definitely not. But TJ has got the stats to back him up, and the fact that he has knocked out 8 guys, 7 of which have been in the UFC. With that being said, he's got that bang Muay Thai style. Dwayne Ludwig's obviously his coach, and he works on sequences and different ways to get in and out, which I think could play a massive factor in this fight. Interesting as well, the defensive statistics are pretty much the same. 60% plays 63%. Strikes absorbed per minute though. TJ Dillashaw absorbs 1 strike per minute more than Aljamain Sterling. It's difficult to know how this fight is going to play out on the feet, because, as we said, I think Aljamain Sterling is going to look to ground the fight, whereas TJ Dillashaw can look to keep it standing, can look to ground the fight if he wants to. We'll go into the grappling statistics in a minute, and sort of, they're very, very interesting. But TJ Dillashaw, he does receive a lot of damage in his fights. If we just take a quick look at TJ, obviously against Cody Garbrandt the first time, Cody knocked him down. The second time was much more one-sided in the favor of TJ. Against Henry Cejudo, obviously that lasted 32 seconds. 32 seconds is how, and 18 strikes landed to 1. TJ Dillashaw was there to be hit. Against Corey Sandhagen, 332 strikes thrown by TJ, 331 strikes thrown by Corey, 171 total strikes landed by Corey Sandhagen on TJ Dillashaw. TJ's there to be hit. And if you look at this in the final round, 42 strikes, 28 strikes, 36 strikes, 37, 28. So they're pretty consistent until you get up to that final round when Corey, the two guys just threw it all out there, as it were. But what that does show is TJ is there to be hit, against Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz isn't a particularly volume striker, but, he threw 312 strikes, landing 122. This is where TJ's accuracy sort of comes in to sort of bite him on the ass. 430 strikes thrown, 130 landed. Yes, this is against Dominic Cruz, arguably in his prime, and Dominic Cruz isn't an easy guy to hit. Aljo is much easier to hit, but it's an interesting stat that TJ is there to be hit, but I'm not sure if Aljo hits hard enough to take advantage of that. Now we'll move into the grappling stats now, because this is really, I think, where the fight will play out, mostly in the grappling range, in the clinch, and on the floor. Takedown average per 15 minutes, pretty much identical, 1.71, 1.63. That's not a big differential between the two. Aljo lands, slightly more takedown, but it's not that's not a significant difference. But this is where this is the surprising statistic for me. 21% of Aljo's takedowns are successful, plays 30% of TJ Dillashaw's. So pretty much for every 5 takedowns Aljo attempts, he lands 1, and for TJ it's a little over 1 in every 3. A little under 1 in every 3. That's interesting. That's a really interesting stat. 21% for Aljamain Sterling, and I think a lot of that comes from that first Petr Yan fight, and the second Petr Yan fight. Really, is he was unable to take Yan down at will. It did end prematurely, but 1 of 17 takedowns for Aljamain Sterling landed in that first fight. Plays 7 of 7 for Petr Yan. Yes, a lot of those were trip takedowns, but they all count. Petr Yan, if he chose to, could have followed Aljo down to the floor. He just pretty much chose not to in that one. 1 of 17 takedowns. Now, takedown percentage of 5%. That's draining in itself. We mentioned earlier how many strikes Aljamain Sterling threw early on in that fight. Look, 83 strikes thrown, 1 of 3 takedowns. 46 strikes thrown, 0 of 5. 65 strikes thrown, 0 of 5. 66 strikes thrown, 0 of 4. Not only is he fatiguing himself by having a huge output, but he's failing on a lot of takedowns. And even in the second fight, yes, we know that the takedowns that he got really made the difference in this fight. But 2 of 22 takedowns. This means he failed on 20 takedown attempts across the fight, the entire fight. None of 2 in the first round, 1 of 2 in the second round, 1 of 4. Look at that final round. 0 of 10 takedown attempts for Aljamain Sterling in the final round against Petr Yan in their rematch. That's worrying for Aljamain Sterling, who is meant to be a fairly decent wrestler. Takedown accuracy overall in his UFC career of 21%. If we just, this is just taking a snapshot of his sort of, his recent career since his last loss. We'll use that as an example. Took Brett Johns down 3 times. Took Cody Stamann down twice, but was taken down 3 times. Didn't take Jimmy Rivera down. I'm not sure how many. Yeah, 0 of 7 against Jimmy Rivera. Against Pedro Munoz, 0 of 7 against Pedro Munoz. Against Corey Sandhagen, yes, he's not actually accredited with a takedown, but he finished it. He got the fight to the ground. It is worrying if you're an Aljamain Sterling fan, and if you're in Aljamain Sterling's corner, that he can't seem to ground his opponents whenever he wants to. Look, 3 of 9 against Brett Johns. Yes, he managed to land 3 takedowns, but he failed on 6 attempts. comparing that to TJ Dillashaw's takedown defense, 86% takedown defense for TJ Dillashaw. So now what that, he wasn't, 2 of 19. He landed 2 of 19 on Sandhagen, but we're just looking at his defense for now, and then we'll go on to his offense in a little while. Corey Sandhagen, we know, not a wrestler, didn't look to take him down. Henry Cejudo, there's no real point looking into that fight because it's 30 seconds. Same with Cody Garbrandt, not a wrestler per se, but he failed on 2 attempts, which means that TJ stopped him twice. In their first fight, again, he didn't look. Corey didn't look to take him down. Interestingly, against Dominic Cruz, if you remember, Cruz 4 of 11, so he landed 4 takedowns, but at an accuracy of just 36%. That's an interesting stat that Dominic Cruz, someone that isn't notorious for his takedown ability, was able to take TJ Dillashaw down. Going back to, we can go back as far as is, we're not counting the Ultimate Fighter, but his UFC debut, these guys aren't looking to take TJ Dillashaw down, potentially because of his ability to defend the takedown. When Renan Barão, 0 of 5 takedowns landed in the rematch before he was finished in the 4th round. Joe Soto obviously took that on very, very short notice. 0 of 5 landed. TJ Dillashaw's takedown defense is phenomenal. 86%. 86% of the time that TJ Dillashaw's opponents try to take him down, he stops them from taking him down. I can't see, unless it is in a wrestling scramble or some sort of chain wrestling or a failed takedown attempt on the side of TJ Dillashaw, that Aljamain Sterling is able to get him to the mat. Like I say, I can't see him getting him to the mat unless it's a failed takedown attempt from TJ. TJ's takedown actually isn't great himself, 30%. But with that being said, Aljo's takedown defense isn't great at 41%. If we just jump into Aljamain Sterling, he's taken down 7 times in the first fight against Petr Yan. 7 times, and most of those were trip takedowns. Now, the Bang Muay Thai style that TJ uses is very in and out. It's very on the beat. He can get in, take him down, and get out, I think, at will. Cody Stamann, 3 of 3 takedowns against Aljamain Sterling. Yes, it didn't quite go his way, but 3 of 3 takedowns. Every time he shot for a takedown, he landed it. Aljamain Sterling is there to be taken down. He did well against Petr Yan to be able to, not be taken down in the second fight, but Yan didn't even attempt to take him down in that second fight. I genuinely think that TJ Dillashaw on the feet has the advantage. In the wrestling realm has the advantage. It's the submission game where I think Aljo holds the advantage. He's scored 8 submissions in his career, whereas TJ Dillashaw has only secured 3. But the submission average for each man, 0.8. These guys don't exactly attempt submissions throughout their fights. Aljo, when he gets it to the floor, just looks to control his opponents. Against Petr Yan, that second time round is pretty much what won him the fight. In the second and third rounds, 3 minutes 50 control time, 3 minutes 43 control time. And then there's a contentious first round. But those 2 rounds were clear Aljamain Sterling rounds. And that's because of the amount of control time that he had. He had Petr Yan's back for large portions of that fight. This Aljamain Sterling versus Corey Sandhagen fight, if you can remember back, it was, it finished in 1 minute 28 seconds. 1 minute 13 of those seconds. 1 minute 13 of that fight. Remember, it only lasted 1 minute 28. For 1 minute 13, Aljamain Sterling controlled Corey Sandhagen and obviously choked him out. He is what many like to call a backpack. Aljamain Sterling, when he can get you to the floor, he will control you. Now, this is interesting. If you look at the control time against Pedro Munoz, 0 takedowns landed, 0 control time, because he couldn't get the fight to the floor, which I really think he's going to struggle with against TJ Dillashaw. Now we go to TJ Dillashaw's control time. Last time out against Corey Sandhagen, took him down 2 of 19. He shot for takedowns a lot more often against Corey Sandhagen than I think he usually would, and that's arguably because of the injury. With that being said, when he got the takedown, he made it work for him. if you look, the first round secured the takedown, almost 2.5 minutes of control time. Second round didn't secure a takedown, 1 minute 18 control time. Third round secured the takedown, 2 minutes of control time. TJ is extremely good, and UFC 200, Rafael Assunção, he was able to take Assunção down, and was it 200 or maybe it was against John Lineker. Yeah, John Lineker he just controlled John Lineker for vast majorities. Look, 2 takedowns landed in the second round, almost 4 minutes of control time. That is a TJ Dillashaw round. Even if he doesn't do much with it, that's a TJ Dillashaw round, because John Lineker is unable to get any offense off. 19 strikes landed, plays 98 strikes landed. In the first round, 1 takedown landed, 1 minute 34, 37 strikes to 12. And in the final round, 2 takedowns landed, 1.5 minute control time, but 42 strikes against 20 for John Lineker. What that suggests is that each man, when they secure a takedown, can keep their opponents there. With that being said, TJ Dillashaw has a lot better chance of getting the fight to the floor than Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling, as we've seen, as the statistics suggest, is not great at wrestling. He isn't great at offensive wrestling, getting his opponent to the floor. But when he does, he can control his opponent there for vast majorities of the round, as we saw in the Petr Yan rematch. For TJ, I think he has a lot more, he's the heavier hitter without a doubt. If he can catch Aljo, maybe Aljo makes a lazy shot and then TJ goes on the offense on the ground. I think TJ is the much more, he's got much more keys to victory, paths to victory, as far as can keep it standing on the feet. It's probably the slightly slicker striker. Whereas Aljo, he'll be looking to go, we even saw on his social media, traveling all this way to backpack TJ Dillashaw. I don't think Aljamain Sterling, especially the stuff after the Petr Yan first fight, he doesn't care if the fans boo him. He doesn't care if the fans like him. He just wants to be the undisputed UFC bantamweight champion. And he wants to leave UFC 280 with that belt secured, wrapped around his waist. For TJ, I think he has to go on the front foot. I think he has to, he might drop 2 rounds to being backpacked by Sterling, but he has to remember that he's got the power advantage over Sterling. Sterling is a dangerous submission threat when it does get to the floor. But TJ is a solid wrestler. I think it was 86% takedown defense. That's an insane stat for when you're facing someone with just a 21 takedown takedown defense offense. Sorry. So TJ can kind of control where this fight goes, and I think, I'm kind of alluding to a TJ Dillashaw victory, but I really wouldn't be surprised if the injuries have caught up with him. And Aljamain Sterling is just motivated for this one. He against Petr Yan the second time, it's the best we've ever seen him in those first 3 rounds. Well, the second and third round, without a doubt, and the first round's contentious, but he looked a lot better. Is the neck surgery a real turning point for Aljamain Sterling? I think we'll really see it in this fight, because Petr Yan's, bad blood going into that one maybe tarnished the performance a little bit, but that was still a phenomenal performance. I think Aljamain Sterling is a real threat, but I just think that TJ Dillashaw has got much more, a much more well-rounded game, can control where the fight goes. I can't wait for this one. The co-main event of UFC 280. Like I said, the stats breakdown of UFC, the UFC 280 main event between Charles Oliveira and Islam Makhachev is already on the YouTube site, so be sure to check that out. I'll link it in the description below. And tomorrow I will be releasing the Petr Yan versus Sean O'Malley stats breakdown, the winner of which could very much see themselves face the winner of this one for the bantamweight title next. Keep it locked to MMA Soccer, guys. Comment down below to let me know if you agree with my analysis of the fight, and who you think is going to win the fight, and which that you think is the most important. Take it easy, guys, and thank you.